Update. My 36 male family is upset I'm prioritizing my brother-in-law over my niece after my sister 27 female cheated. Original story. My sister married 27 female met her husband Tom, 29 male, when she was attending college out of state and he was stationed near her campus with the army. After he got out, she dropped out of school so they could move to our home state at her request, so we've been the only family he's had here. They have a 3-year-old daughter, Jane. Not long ago, a guy, call him Bill, reached out to Tom on Facebook and told him that he saw my sister has a 3-year-old kid and that there's a possibility my niece may be his child. He and my sister had been having an affair from the time they moved home, until shortly after she found out she was pregnant. He had to move away for work and my sister never mentioned pregnancy to him or that she was married. Tom confronted Mary and eventually she admitted to the affair. 2 paternity tests later, it was confirmed my niece is not Tom's child. He has been devastated. Bill wants to be in Jane's life, but my sister and family are staunchly against this. They say Jane already has a dad, Tom. Tom has been going to counseling since Biodad first reached out to him, and he just cannot see Jane the way he used to or be around her or talk about her without breaking down. He says it hurts too much, and he feels like his life has been based on a lie. Nor can you really imagine staying in her life with Bill around. Since they separated, I have been letting Tom stay at my place since he has no family here. My sister thinks I'm out of line letting Tom stay, and that I'm depriving my niece of her uncle. She doesn't want Jane here so long as I'm supporting Tom. Fair, I guess. And Tom has offered that he would go to friends or out if I wanted to babysit or spend time with my niece. Also fair. Personally, I sympathize with Tom. I'm not an affair baby, but my mother was pregnant with me when she met my sibling's father. He made a stipulation that it'd stick around, but my bio-dad and bio-family could not be around, and my mother agreed. He treated me differently once my sister and brothers were born, and even more so after he and my mother divorced. My paternal family reached out eventually, and I learned the truth and got to know them. This pissed off my adopted dad to no end, and his family as well. Said it was a slap in the face that I would even want to know my other family. They were my family, and it was ungrateful of me to forsake all of that. I don't want my niece to possibly go through that. Getting stuck between families is the worst. So I've been helping Tom find out more about Bill and mediating between them when they talk. Bill seems like a real stand-up guy with positive people around him and wants to take my sister to court for custody and brother-in-law as well to get taken off the birth certificate. I support both of them in these decisions and have offered to help if they need it. My sister is mad at me, but I have told her and our family that she should only be mad at herself. None of this would even be happening if she hadn't played eeny meeny miny mo with her kid's dad. My family thinks I'm prioritizing Tom and Bill over my own niece, that I should be shaming him for abandoning his daughter, and that I am turning my back on her. But I don't think I am. I also think that Tom deserves some kind of support through all of this. I could really use some outside perspective. Is this really a wrong stance for me to take? Or should I back off because my family is right about Tom needing to stick around and shun Bill? Now for the top advice before reading the update. Sorry, your sister needs to, figuratively, be set on fire. She is the reason this happened. Paternity fraud, cheating, lying, just scum. There are 3 victims here: Jane, Tom, and Bill. I understand Tom's position. I don't think I could raise another man's child. I honestly believe it would be my worst nightmare if my son wasn't mine. It doesn't matter what your family thinks. Bill is right, he is going to be involved, they need to deal with this. It seems everything he has done is honorable. Reaching out must have been hard. This has got to be awful for Jane. My heart breaks for her. Luckily, there are still a large number of people fighting to be involved. I think she's going to be okay. Fortunately, she is really young too. What a piece of work Mary is. I hope you are doing okay. You sound like a fantastic uncle. Especially as Opie has literally been in Jane's position. If anyone can understand and support her through this, it's clearly him. Stand firm, Opie. You're a good person. Keep standing tall. This whole situation is in your sister's head, but she's trying to blame you for supporting 2 of the 3 victims of her shenanigans. It sounds like you were the scapegoat of the family. You're not putting the 2 men above your niece. Your sister is weaponizing her. She's the one not allowing you to see her. Don't buy into their manipulative BS. Your sister could very easily set up times where you can visit your niece, go on an outing to the park, for example, etc. She's the one putting the caboose on this. I find it admirable that you are ultimately benefiting your niece by clearing up her paternity situation and allowing her bio dad to claim his rights to her. I especially find it admirable that you are supporting your brother-in-law after the massive betrayal that he has endured via your sister's hand. Keep walking tall and don't lower yourself to your family's non-existent ethics. Your family is supporting the woman who cheated on her husband, had a baby with another man, and never told anyone. They don't get a say. I find it just disgusting that their argument is that you don't get to see your niece if Tom is living with you. They don't seem to have a problem with your niece not seeing Tom, the only dad she's known, or for Pete's sake her newly revealed bio dad. Your want to support Tom and mediate with Bill is admirable, Opie. You are a good person. It's such a leap in logic they're applying to. They won't let Opie see his niece because the child's not father is there, but they have unilaterally decided the not father is the father and therefore must take responsibility for her. While I understand guys who stay in kids' lives after a discovery like this is made, you can't blame them for walking away either. Niece is only 3 anyways, and the fact is that if he left now, she'd never even remember him. It's basically a screw you fall in line tactic my family is prone to using in people. I enjoy seeing my niece, but I'm not supporting my sister and joining my family and telling Tom to drop the divorce and reconcile. Instead, I'm saying nothing about what he should do regarding their marriage and supporting him in his decision to get off the birth certificate. I offered him a place to stay versus telling him to go home or to find some place else to stay until he can move. It's less about not letting Tom be around her and more about punishing me so long as I go against the grain. A Down 40 update. Firstly, thank you everyone for your comments, messages, insights, and support. It really helped me strengthen my resolve and find solace in what I was doing. I'll address a few concerns/questions that popped up before my mini update. Yes, Bill knows Jane is his. When Tom got his paternity test done, he and Bill had him go separately to be tested. Why am I letting Tom stay with me? Well, he was family for years. And for me, you don't just chuck family onto the streets except for extreme situations. Divorce takes a year in my state, and Tom is opting to stay to make sure it can all be handled quickly and smoothly to get it finalized as soon as possible. That said, he plans on moving back to his home state after that, so I'm letting him stay with me so he can save money for his move and moving expenses. Otherwise, the only places he could afford on his own require 6 and 12 months leases. Supporting Tom and Bill may result in my sister and I having little to no contact. True, it may, and that'll be our crosses to bear. But I can't find it in me to ignore others needing help just to satiate her and excuse her behavior. I still love my sister. Whatever my feelings or opinions of what she did or is doing have no place in this, nor it is really the time for me to go expressing them to her. Bill's lawyer says it's very likely Bill will wind up with a custody arrangement, and he has assured me that if things do go south with my sister, that she won't let me see my niece, I'd always be welcome to visit them to see her during his time with her. Now, for the update. It's not a huge one, but rather surprising. My sister is still being cranky and doubling down, doing all she can to guilt Tom into reconciling, and adamant about Bill not being involved because she has a husband that just needs to realize they can work through this. Tom is Jane's dad and Bill is not needed. So, meh there. Last week, I went on a fishing trip with both Tom and Bill for the 3 of us to just relax and forget all this nonsense for a bit. Once we got back, my mother showed up to try talking to me about why I'm doing any of this. Surprisingly, we had a decent talk after some heated tension. I wound up showing her the post, and while she wasn't happy I was airing our laundry, it helped a bit. Ultimately, I was able to get it through to her that given the circumstances and the high probability Bill is going to be a presence in Jane's life from here on out, the best thing for Jane would be if our family and Bill could at least coexist. I asked her how she would feel if her granddaughter was constantly having to choose who to spend time with for birthdays, graduation, prom pictures, etc., or God forbid, we all put her in a position that she would have to lie to everyone about what she wanted just to not hurt feelings. It took a while, but that seemed to at least get through to her a bit. She's still not happy about the whole situation, but she did agree to a dinner in a public place to meet Bill and some of his family, and I'm happy to say that that wound up going off really well, and Bill's mother had a good heart-to-heart with her. So, some progress. Thanks again everyone for the support. Opie, you truly are a stellar human being. If you are not a counselor or mediator, you should probably look into it as an alternative career. Just amazing how you brought everyone together. Hugs to you. Damn. So your sister lied to both of these men for years and now expects them and everyone else to bend to her will? It sounds like you, Tom, and Bill have Jane's best interests in mind more than your sister or parents do. Kudos to you for doing the right thing. Writers of cheap romances couldn't write a character with this level of entitlement even with 10 pens. Opie's sister messed up and has to face the music. I'm still surprised anyone is listening to your sister. She married Tom, cheated on him with Bill and became pregnant, unbeknownst to Bill, and then decided Tom was who she wanted to be the father. She doesn't get to decide that for Pete's sake. If I were Tom, I'd skedaddle too. And the fact that Bill contacted them to stand up and be a father speaks to his character. Maybe it will rub off on your sister. You are a great person, Opie. You actually seek harmony and what is best for Jane. She's lucky to have you. How is Jane doing in all of this? It must be hard when your dad disappears one day. Is she okay with it? Yeah. It's not just Bill and Tom who are hurt. Jane is a victim too. 3 people's lives have become emotional wrecks due to the actions of one person. I can't understand why paternity fraud isn't a crime. Now for the next story. Ex passed away, and I'm finding out we had a son together. Her family wants me to have custody. What should I do? We broke up way before I, 25 male, learned about this, and I'm still not sure what to think. Recently found out not only that she passed away, but we have a 7-month-old son. Her family was telling her before that I needed to know, but she kept putting it off. So now with what happened, they felt I needed to be told and take part in his life. Just to be sure, I asked for a paternity test and got the results now. It's definitely mine, so that's freaked me out more. This has made it so much more real. I really don't know what to do now. Every time I think about it, it all gets overwhelming. I feel like I'm gonna get an anxiety attack. Then sometimes I get so angry that she never told me because I absolutely had a right to know about this from the beginning and be there for my son. Now all of a sudden, I'm a single dad expecting to take care of a baby I didn't know existed less than a few weeks ago. Her mom says she can help out, but can't take him full time. Her sister's still in college. That's why they really need me and say my son needs me. I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to do the right thing, but I'm scared I'm gonna mess this up so bad. I don't want to mess this poor kid up, and I'm gonna be the only parent who knows. Tomorrow is the first time I'm supposed to meet him. So nervous and freaked out about everything going on. My parents say I'm gonna be a great dad, but I'm not sure about that, or how I'm gonna manage with a baby suddenly with me. I'm really looking for any advice on this. Please, can someone help me how to navigate everything going on? Now for the top advice. The fact that you're worried about messing up is a good, healthy, normal thing. I've been doing it for 20 years and still get that panic. Acceptance is the first key. Does Opie need to get custody? Can he just say no? Can he take on the uncle role if he wants? How does this work? I feel like everyone is saying good luck, Opie. Like, what are his options? I am a female, so I guess I couldn't be in this position, but this all seems really unfair to Opie. And if he wants out, I feel that's his right. He can give up parental rights and put the baby up for adoption, but it doesn't even remotely sound like this is something he wants to do. I'll let you in on a secret. No one is ever ready to be a parent, even the ones that planned it out. And the other secret is once you start being a parent, you will be better at it than you thought you would. Take advantage of your support group, and it's natural to worry, but we'll be okay. When you're in that quiet moment, laying down with your son peacefully sleeping on your chest, you will understand it's all worth it. This is great. Also, the biggest indicator for you being a good parent is that you're scared crapless about messing up and being a bad one. The people who turn out to be terrible parents never cared if they were going to be good or bad ones. Opie being scared and seeing how huge a responsibility this is, literally a great indicator for him doing well. Some Swedish author had this to say about parenthood. Give your children love, 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 and more love, and the rest will follow. Just be there for your kid. Teach them, learn from them, read to them, even starting now. When they're old enough to talk, listen and hear what they have to say. This won't be easy, but you got this. Didn't know about the sub. Gonna be checking out, so thanks. This is all so crazy overwhelming. Last story is titled, My ex wanted me to spend Father's Day with her son. I used to date Laura for 3 years, and she had a 6-year-old boy, Timmy. Timmy and I were pretty close. But Laura and I weren't in love and decided to break things off. Timmy and I met occasionally afterwards because he insisted on it. 2 years later, I got married to the love of my life and we just had a son. Laura was really pissed because now her son was going to take a backseat to my own. I explained to her that her son should move on, but she insisted I still be in his life. It was my first Father's Day yesterday, and I spent it with my dad and son. It was 3 generations of family, and I almost teared up. That was until I found Timmy at my doorstep wishing me Happy Father's Day. I was shocked, and Laura had already driven off. I included Timmy in the festivities, but I was damn pissed. When Laura came to pick him up, I just sent him off. I'm thinking of bringing in Timmy one more time and telling him I'm not his dad or pretend dad, and I don't want to see him anymore. Would this be going too far? Well, Timmy is a kid. He obviously feels like you're a father figure in his life. You need to have a talk with Laura, who is enabling this. Laura's nuts. She is feeding Timmy lies which will eventually hurt him. If she does this again, let him in and report his mom for abandoning him on your doorstep. What if something happened after she left him and drove off? What if you weren't even home? She put him in a very dangerous situation, and I personally wouldn't let her off easy. Absolutely going too far. This is a child, a young boy who looks up to you as a father figure. Why willingly crush him? Any problems you have should be handled directly with your ex, his mother. Tell her you're sorry, but you're not his dad and don't have a father/son bond with him. You've moved on and have your own child and would appreciate if she left you alone. I feel sorry for that poor boy. I've told her again and again, but she's borderline crazy. If she keeps dropping the kid off on you after you've expressed all of this, it's time to tell her that if she does it again, you're going to report her for child abandonment or something. She can't force you into a relationship or even to be a babysitter. That's nuts. I may need a restraining order. Update. My 28 female parents were given $30,000 for my grandparents for a wedding and down payment for me. They spent all of it in vacations and now want me to take out a loan for a wedding. Original post. Long story short, my grandparents are wealthy. My mother is very spoiled and self-centered. Additionally, I believe she likely has a cluster B personality disorder. Every single situation is somehow about her. My dad's side can't stand her because she sows chaos anywhere she goes. For example, my dad's side threw a birthday party for one of my cousins. The whole day was focused on a fight because she spent $8 on ingredients to make a lasagna to bring, then ruins the poor kid's birthday. This is just one example, but this every situation, every time she's the center of everything. Her family's pretty wild. I've been present for multiple fist fights between her and her sisters. Every fight stems from someone getting more money than the other. One time, my mom had a phone cord wrapped around my aunt's neck. Although terrible, it was kind of impressive to be honest, as my mom's a small person. Anyway, despite my grandparents being wealthy, I grew up pretty poor in the beginning. My mom got cut off a few years, probably had something to do with the phone cord incident. I remember going to food banks for food, clothes for donations, etc. When things did get better, my parents refused to spend any money on me. If I had clothes for school, it was because my aunt bought me an outfit for Christmas. I mean, they were ridiculous with it. My grandfather, dad's side, tried to get custody of me due to neglected alcoholism. As for the wealthy grandparents, look, I'm not entitled. It's their money. But every grandchild except me got their college paid for, got a car, a down payment on a house, and a wedding. Super freaking generous. I was just hurt that I got none of these things. It felt personal. I felt it was their way of communicating that they loved me less, and that damaged our relationship. Fast forward to this week. I'm engaged. I wasn't expecting a big wedding. I was okay with eloping. But I figured my parents might want to do something since I'm their only kid. So I asked them what they wanted to do. Well, my mom was drunk because, it's 2 p.m., confesses to the $30,000 thing. Then the next day, non-stop pressuring me into taking out a loan. I refused and say, you were given $30,000 for a wedding and a down payment, but you decided vacations and cars were more important. Then the whole thing gets turned into, poor her. Can you believe she won't get to plan a wedding with her daughter because the daughter expects a wedding to be paid in full? What a spoiled witch. Now I have relatives calling me up with this BS. They're under the impression that I'm being a diva. I keep dodging the conversation, but I don't know how long I can do it. Because once my relatives find out, there is no saving her reputation with them. Also, through all of this, found out my grandparents did give money for college. The problem is they gave it to my mom and she spent it. It must have been a decent amount too because my grandparents are under the impression that they paid my college in full. I'm at a loss. I haven't talked to my parents in a week. I know they're my parents and I need to forgive them no matter what, but this is hard. It almost feels like they aren't my parents anymore. That bonding feeling, or whatever it is gone. Sorry that this post was long. It felt cathartic typing this out. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Are your grandparents still alive? If yes, then tell them everything about what happened to the money. If they aren't, tell your relatives everything. And I mean the entire truth. What's the point trying to cover up your mom's reputation when clearly she's a horrible person? How long will you keep enabling her and her condescending attitude? Choice is yours. Oh, be this. You haven't done anything to your mom's reputation. She did all of that, and you're the victim. Don't let her turn you into the devil for this. She's a narcissist and needs to be shown for who she is. Jumping on this to add that Opie is under no obligation to forgive her parents no matter what. Everyone gets to choose where their line is, and when/if they want a relationship with someone. Cut out all of the middlemen and speak to your grandparents. Explain to them that the reason you're not speaking to your parents is that they have recently confessed that they spent the college and wedding money that your grandparents gave to them that was intended for you. Explain to your grandparents that you're extremely hurt by this, because not only does it show how dishonest, selfish, and unloving your parents are towards you, but you have existed for years believing that you were the only grandchild that your grandparents never helped for some unfathomable reason, and so you always felt rejected and cast aside by them too. The damage that has been done by their actions is wide-ranging. And not only are you emotionally hurt, but you have college debt and could be in a significantly better financial position if this hadn't happened. It's also worth pointing out that in most countries, this would constitute fraud and theft. They have defrauded your grandparents by pretending to have used this money for the intended purpose. They have stolen this money from you. Your mother asking you to take out the loan is not about wanting to plan your wedding. It's about the fact that she wants to continue the lie to your grandparents. Her plan is that you take out the loan, have a $30,000 wedding, and she tells them that their money paid for it, while you were left with more debt, on top of your college debt. Do not assist your mother in defrauding your grandparents further. This is your grandparents' money. They deserve to know the truth of what happened to it, and why in all these years you never thanked them for any of the money they believed they gave you. Honestly, this would be enough for me to never speak to my parents again. I would even consider reporting them to the police, but I guess your grandparents would need to support that. Your parents' actions are so selfish and cruel it's unreal, and the fact other relatives try to save you from their care speaks volumes. Why your grandparents thought giving them the money was a good idea, I don't know. Please note also that throughout all of this, I have said parents, although you seem very focused on your mother alone. This was both of your parents. There is no excuse for your father having allowed any of this to happen. He is just as culpable and has benefited from the theft of your money. Once your grandparents are aware, tell your other relatives. You have done nothing wrong and don't deserve to suffer the consequences of keeping their actions a secret. And now for the update 1 year later. Not the exact wording of the first post, but it's still up. It is now a little over a year since. I appreciate all of the replies and I apologize for not getting back to everyone, but I read all of them. A lot of you showed sympathy for my grandparents, which is fair. But I think I should disclose that my grandfather is not the most ethical person. He is/was a really cutthroat business person. He was very awful to his children. Also, once he starts giving you huge gifts, he feels you're indebted to him. I was in shock and very emotional when I wrote that post. I went to Reddit because I felt I couldn't get it together enough to remain calm when talking to anyone else. I have a tendency to come off as defensive, which makes it seem like I did something wrong, which I think they were banking on. I didn't talk to my parents or any of my family much for a month. There was a word going around that I blew all the money. It was laying low until it all blew over. Then when people started asking me directly about it, I was able to remain calm and say I was never offered any money. People really grilled me about where the money went. I never got emotional or defensive. Just, I was never offered any money. Maybe you should ask them about the BMW. So everyone knows. I was afraid they wouldn't believe me at first. But considering my parents were financially abusive in my younger years, it wasn't a far stretch. I never planned a wedding because I knew my parents would lie and say they paid for it. I really considered going no contact. My husband talked me into low contact, but we both agreed that we will never give them any money or nice gifts. We will do the bare minimum. As for my grandparents, this conflict is now between them and my parents. Again, everyone is fully aware and no one faults me. Your parents stole the money from your grandparents, intended not only for your wedding, but another considerable sum for your education? Then they expect you to take out a loan to pay for your mom to have the pleasure of organizing your wedding? They are complete narcissists. Firstly, congratulations on your marriage. Sounds like you had a low-key wedding. Good on you for celebrating within your budget and making the best art possible in your marriage. Secondly, I'm amazed how you have remained calm and dignified with your relatives as they speculated about your spending. The truth is out, but nobody's agitating on your behalf for your parents to make restitution for their thievery. I hope your mother's share of the inheritance is adjusted for the sum once your grandmother passes. Finally, your parents have inadvertently given you the gift of self-reliance, which will serve you well into the future as you pay off college debt and save for your children's future and your retirement. Is that how they justified withholding the money from you, since maybe your mom never got anything from her parents? Honestly, it's not worth talking to them to find out. All the best for a future filled with love for the family you've created for yourself. My mother did get a lot from her parents, but they cut her off for a period of time. I don't think this even registers in her mind as wrong. When I was a young teen, I had to get a job to help pay for basic hygiene products and clothes. They were authorized on my bank account since I was a minor. They wouldn't let me have access to it and stole money from it constantly. They always treated me like I was a financial burden just for existing. They expected their siblings and parents to pay for my necessities. I think they feel this is reimbursement for raising me. I'm angry on your behalf that your extended family knew of this financial mistreatment and yet did nothing to help you. Parents are obligated to nurture and look after their children. Your parents' narcissism knows no bounds. In some ways, I'm glad you're not completely no contact, as seeing them occasionally just reminds you how far you've moved on from them. I hope your in-laws are fabulous. I think your husband is wrong about low contact. It should be no contact. What's the point of having them in your life? They sound awful and abusive. So, your grandparents gifted you $30,000 and your parents spent it? Or to rephrase that, your parents blew $30,000 of your money? Why are you still in contact with these people? I get their family, but they don't seem to give a crap about you. They actually handed my parents $50,000. They wanted them to use that $50,000 to pay for a wedding, put a down payment on a home for me, and use the remainder, no more than $20,000, towards their debt. Unfortunately, they gave the money to them, not me. They wanted my parents to be responsible for divvying out the money. I guess to make sure I made good decisions when purchasing. But they didn't do that. Legally, I don't have a leg to stand on. There was no paperwork. It was a gift. And believe me, my grandparents would not look kindly on me taking this to court and would not back me up. They're also both in poor health, and I don't want to put that extra chaos on them. I don't know how much longer they're going to live. Next story. I found out that my parents paid out my sister's tuition loans and pressured them to keep it a secret from me. Not that I'm jealous or even slightly upset. I'm just curious to find out why, and more importantly, why they stressed it should be kept a secret from me. I, 23 male, recently graduated from a top master's degree. During my undergrad, I had many scholarships and grants. Everything was virtually free. For the miscellaneous, it was super expensive, so I took out a loan to cover the cost. It was fine by me because now I make twice as much as I paid, and I can easily redeem my debt if I wanted to. My parents didn't contribute to my education, and I never asked them to. Recently, I found out that my sisters, 25 and 21, had no outstanding debt. I had to arrange trades and due diligence in their accounts. As requested, it was surprised to see no debt, considering that a year earlier they couldn't stop complaining about it. $150,000 combined. I was happy for them at first glance, but when I told them about it over Thanksgiving, they seemed shaken, like I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. A few days later, my older sister told me that our parents paid everything for them, and were clear in instructing them to keep me in the dark. I asked why, but couldn't get a definitive answer. From what I could tell, my sister knows the reason, but has refused to tell me. I'm just really curious. I have a great relationship with my parents. They've always been positive about my education and work. I'm just fretting the possibility they might be thinking I'm a failure or too reckless or such like. Again, I earn decently and live very comfortably and my parents know all about it. Not sure if I'm just making a big deal out of nothing, but would really appreciate any insight here. Do I just leave it behind or talk about it? It's pretty awful for your parents to do that. It's one thing to pay for them and not you, but it's another thing to lie and hide it. Rather than them thinking you're a failure, I'd say it's much more likely they knew you'd make it on your own without their help. They may not have been so confident in your sisters. It's not pretty crappy of his parents to do so. It's super crappy. Talk to them. You're not making a big deal out of nothing. It's a huge deal for them to treat you so differently to your sisters and to keep it a secret from you. Anyone in your position would be hurt and questioning their motives. Talk to your parents. Whether you really need the money or not, it's BS to give 2 kids $150,000 and a third kid $0. Even if you were totally debt-free, if they had $150,000 total to give their kids, each should have gotten an equal amount. As an aside, it would be totally normal for you to be jealous and upset. This is BS on your parents' part, and you are allowed to have feelings about it. I agree 100% this is not right, and clearly they know it was wrong. That's why they kept it a secret. I would disagree that everyone should always get an equal amount. Opie seems to be more gifted than his siblings. Life is never fair with what it hands out. You may argue that it's his hard work and diligence that got him where he is, and you would be absolutely right. But if you think about it, some people can put into work and some cannot. Maybe it's the people they meet. Maybe it is the way they're born. Maybe it is about the expectations from you. Whatever is the reason, Opie is far better off than her siblings. If they gave $50,000 to Opie, it would definitely be nice, but it wouldn't be life-changing. That money was probably life-changing for his siblings. But if you're not equally dividing things, it can definitely create problems. The correct thing to do would be to talk to the Opie about this. If they said that they were thinking about paying off sister's debt and they thought since Opie is doing well enough, would he let them off the hook? I believe Opie wouldn't be upset about it at all. But the secrecy, the exclusion it brings, the feeling of things going on behind your back, that's just unnecessary pain they caused by choosing to go behind his back. Now for the last story. My female 17 parents have taken all my savings that I was preparing for university. What can I do? The title really says it all. I am unbelievably upset and exhausted that I just don't know what to do. I had over $4,000 saved from working the last few years that I was going to use for university next year, but it was in an account my parents controlled. My mom is a gambler and spends almost every evening at VLTs. And now she took my money to cover basic expenses like insurance and power bills. I just don't know what to do now other than wait until I can move out in July. I love my mother, but she's really screwed me over. I know there isn't a way I can get the money back. I don't even know what to say to her. Now for the advice. This happened to me before I graduated high school as well. Saved all my Christmas and birthday money every year because I knew I wanted to go to college when I finished high school. After graduating, I asked where the money was, and my parents said that it went toward my rent for the past 18 years. That makes my blood boil. They chose to have you. So any living costs incurred for the first 18 years was completely on them. I can only imagine what they spent the money on. When you get the chance, cut your contact. Eliminate what is toxic in your life and focus on making yourself happy. Also, take some solace in the fact that $4,000 is like a couple pennies when it comes to loans like that. I have no idea how she's able to access your money, but you should probably make a bank account that she can't get into. If you're under 18, you legally can't have a bank account in the US without an adult co-signing, meaning they have joint access to the account. Normally, parents aren't crappy enough to take money from their own kids, but it does still happen. Am I the a-hole for taking my mother's ultimatum? So I had gotten a job and eventually started making money for myself to save up while I was living with my parents so I could move out eventually. After I got my first few paychecks, I asked my parents to take me to our cell phone provider. They both agreed, and both congratulated me on saving money to buy my own phone. I invited my boyfriend to come along with us, to which he agreed. Now, my dad, being the greatest man alive, paid for half of my phone and told me just to pay him back little by little. That way, I still have money to buy some stuff if I wanted. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I had finished paying off my dad and still paid for my phone bill myself. This is where my mother comes in. After those weeks, My mother approached me and asked if I could give them just a bit more money than my phone bill to help out with the utilities and such. While I was staying there, no big deal. I agreed, and started giving about $200 every 2 weeks to pay for my phone and help with the internet and water. After a while at my job, I was fired for missing too many days due to watching my nieces and nephew, while my sister and my mother went out and did errands. They would stay out almost 8 hours a day pretty much every day, and it would consistently make me late for work that I got wrote up twice because of it. So eventually the company let me go. I keep watching my nieces and nephew, and eventually got a new job at a smaller retail chain store. I still was paying the same amount of money while I was getting almost half as much in salary, and was paid weekly, which was leaving me with about $80 for the rest of the week. But after a few months, I was getting more and more frustrated with my mother. We were always having fights, and at each other's throats and screaming at each other. I always asked her why she wanted almost all of my money that I worked hard for. She would always just say, "You live under my roof, you will do as I say." This caused a major communication issue with us. So I told her I wasn't watching my nieces and nephew, so that way I could actually sleep so I could stay awake while working my third shift job. Cue the ultimatum. She berated me and told me that you can either give me money, stay here and watch your nieces and nephew while me and your sister do some errands, or you can get the hell out of my house. Then she left and went to the store. Needless to say, I chose to leave. I had all my stuff packed and called my boyfriend and told him what happened. He then called his mother, and she said that she would happily let me live with her and her son, my boyfriend. I gave my nieces and nephew my stuffed animals to take care of while I'm not there. My mother came back fuming, but didn't say a word other than, "I hope you're happy you're abandoning me just like your brother." I hugged her, told her I loved her, and left. I still kept contact with my dad, and my mom still tries to be a part of my life. Am I the a-hole for choosing to leave? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I'm proud of you for leaving. I'm sure that it was still hard. You made the right choice as that was a toxic and controlling environment. Your mother thought she could guilt you into whatever she wanted, but you proved to her that you are your own person and won't take it. Good. The comment about your brother leaving her too was both unnecessary and very telling for parenting if you aren't the first to leave. Based on the mom's comments about the brother and Opie's post, I think we can pretty accurately deduce which kid is the mom's golden child. The major flaw with giving ultimatums is that the person you are trying to control will choose to take the consequence. Opie's mother is being abusive. When you mistreat people, you reap what you sow. You are not the a-hole. Your mother is. Not the a-hole. The fact that the same thing happened with Opie's brother and the mom didn't learn a thing makes her double the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You left a toxic situation. Let's recap. 1. You prove you are financially responsible. Good. 2. You contribute in accordance to your means. You're not a freeloader. Good. 3. Your mother and your sister require a chore from you that costs you the job, aka your financial independence. 4. You find another job with lower pay. However, with fewer resources, you are still expected to contribute as much as before when your family had a hand in reducing your resources. 5. You finally draw a line, refusing free babysitting on the grounds that your body requires sleep. 6. Your mom responds to you finally addressing the issue with issuing an ultimatum. You took it, end of story. Either your mother is oblivious to how thin she was stretching you, or she's more into control than your personal growth. Don't go no contact, but don't go back either. You did well. Not the a-hole. Glad you left. You already lost a job because you had to watch the kids. But yet your mother still wants you to pay but risk losing your paycheck to watch your sister's kids? Why don't they bring the kids with them or pay for childcare? They should be paying you to watch the kids. Good on you for calling her bluff and leaving. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my mom when she's going to start prioritizing her kids? My 17 female mom had me fairly young, and as a result, I now have a 7-week-old brother. My mom thinks she's done parenting, so from the day she brought my brother home, I've been responsible for him pretty much. Now she's not pregnant anymore. She can go drink and smoke grass with her friends, and that's pretty much all she's been doing since he was born. Some nights, she doesn't even come home. I live in a country with paid maternity leave, luckily, so my mom is still getting paid for the time she's taking off, but she blows through it fairly fast. I've dealt with that one by getting shop brand everything. And I started cloth napping the baby so there's money for important things like his formula and clothes when they're needed. So this morning, I told my mom I needed money for the grocery shopping as we're low in everything, including formula and wipes. Normally I do the shopping on a Saturday because Sunday morning is hangover day, but there was a roadblock in my buzz route yesterday. Then my mom turned around and said she hasn't got any money, and that she spent it all last night. This was all it took to provoke me. I began to give out to her about everything. I told her that she's a horrible parent, and that the day I move out, I'm taking the baby with me and we're going no contact. But the line that set her off was, "When are you going to start prioritizing your children like a real parent?" This made her really angry. She went on a rant and called me insults, such as a-hole, brat, the c-word, the list goes on, and then told me to get lost. So I took my brother and went to a mate's. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I started cloth napping the baby. Normally I do the shopping on a Saturday. You sound like a mother. What that means is, A, you're a truly decent person for stepping up and taking care of this baby's needs. And B, your mother's an a-hole for putting you in that position. Don't think for a second you're any of the things she called you. I agree, except for the threat of taking the baby with her. While she may be doing all the work, Opie is not the legal guardian. Sure, that could change with CPS, but that's not something to toss around in a heated argument. Not an a-hole. Your mother is a horrible parent. If there is a way to report her, I would. You should be worrying about school, friends, and enjoying your summer. Not raising an infant and worrying about nappies, wipes, and formula. That baby and you deserve better. This. OP, please leave ASAP and contact CPS, or whatever your country's equivalent for children's services is called, the second you can. Parentification is abuse, and your mom clearly expects you to pay for all her partying/messing around. I won't vote either way, as this is beyond a silly Reddit judgment. You need to get in contact with whatever form of social services you have in your country and save not only yourself, but your little brother. It's terrifying and will drastically change the course of your life. You're old enough to at least scrape by as you get back on your feet, but your little brother is not. Should he be left in her care, and the situation really is as dire as it sounds, you won't be able to help him when the hammer inevitably strikes and you leave the house. Imagine the mistreatment you must have gone through. Would you want him to go through that as well? Call someone, anyone, who knows of the government programs designed to help it protect young people in your position. And should said agency deem it really as drastic as it seems from your post, you'll end up with a better outcome than you would by staying with her. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for concealing my pregnancy from my family and not announcing until after I had given birth? I gave birth to my son in May. My pregnancy with him was not planned, though very much a highlight for my husband and me. The only thing was that I didn't want my family, mom, her husband, his kids, and his mom, to know. I was estranged from my mom for a number of years, and we had sort of reconciled a couple of months before the pandemic sent us into lockdown. Our relationship has been rocky since then, and I didn't want her trying to push past the let's see stage into me being her baby and her being grandma. She hurt me deeply. Not understand why. I struggled to cope with my dad's death when I was 9. He was sick for 2 years, had faded a lot in his last few months, and ended up very sick and in hospital for the final weeks of his life. It was traumatizing, and my dad was the stay-at-home parent with me before he got sick, so he and I spent a lot of time together and we were close. But my mom did her grieving when he was sick, and was able and ready to bounce back and start dating fast. Whereas I had nightmares, woke up crying, and often had panic attacks after his death. It pissed her off that babysitters would call her home from dates. And then when she got married and I was crying, it pissed her off even more because she had wanted me to keep watch of her husband's 2 kids at the time. It was another year passed before my grandparents were able to convince her I needed help, and this was 3 years after losing my dad. I was diagnosed with depression and trauma-related anxiety and started pretty intensive treatment. But even then, my mom showed no real empathy for me, and she was very cold about it all. But everyone in the house, my mom, her husband, his kids, and his mom, expected me to be happy and love how things were. My mom and I got into a fight when I was 17, because I chose to mark the anniversary of my dad's passing instead of celebrating her mother-in-law's retirement. And with that, I moved in with my grandparents and we didn't talk for many years. I did consider telling her about my pregnancy a few times, but I wasn't sure I could set boundaries with her and wanted to wait. But she found out 2 days after my son was born, and she was angry. She told me I denied the family the chance to be excited and plan for a new addition to the family, and that it was her and her husband's first grandchild, and I had no right to keep them in the dark for so long. He told me I was punishing my mom for being happy when I couldn't be. It made me question my decision to reconcile, but still I need to know. Where my actions are concerned, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Once again, she made your experience about herself. The only thing she should have said was, "Congratulations, what would you like for me to do?" I think from her reaction, you should clearly see that nothing has changed. I would close the door on that part of my life. Wishing you and your growing family the best. Thank you. I kept my mother in my life out of guilt and feeling that I owed her. I didn't owe that witch anything, and neither do you. She hurt you and doesn't care. Keep that vile woman away from that precious baby. You'll be a better mom for it. Not the a-hole. She did not have a right to know. She isn't entitled to anything from you. She should be appreciative that she found out it all. But it seems like she hasn't changed, and you may want to protect your child from her. That's where my thoughts were too. It's been a lot of bad history with us, and it looks like maybe it just can't work. Not even sure I truly wanted to, or if I was just going along to see. Either way, it's clear none of this is healthy for my son. Not the a-hole. It's not about her or your extended family. It's about you, your husband, and your baby. She's trying to make this about her when it's not. If she can't even attempt to see your point of view, then how much has really changed? Not really. I mean, yes, it was a conscious decision as an adult not to tell her, so maybe more can go on me. But it's very much like it was before, down to her anger and a willingness to understand. You did what was best for you and your family, and that's what matters here. Don't take the blame as you did nothing wrong. If it helps, my mother-in-law tried to get into it with me saying some BS about grandparents' rights. I told her to take me to court then, and that she won't be seeing her grandson until she can respect my wishes. You're the mom now. You have the opportunity to be everything you wanted from your mom. Look out for your baby. You got this, OP. Thank you. I needed to hear that from someone not my husband. He's wonderful, but he also loves me, and I know he's probably biased in knowing I can do it. Your words mean more than my words here can express. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my kids go with my mom and her boyfriend? My mom lives in Washington and I live in Kentucky, and my mom just drove across the country to visit my kids and meet her new granddaughter. She recently got into a relationship with this guy who I had not met until Thursday last week, and we had been flirting with the idea of my 2 oldest boys driving back with them. They were going to take their time driving back to Washington and see different sights along the way. My wife and I were not entirely comfortable with this idea since we had not met him, but we were just going to trust her judgment. While they were here in Kentucky, my mother-in-law said they could stay at her vacant house while they are working out of town. I know this guy likes to smoke grass, which isn't a huge deal, except my mother-in-law and father-in-law have a very strict no substances rule at their house. I very directly told my mom's boyfriend that they have one rule, no grass or any other Ds. He acted like it wasn't a big deal, and I reiterated no grass. The neighbor is a state trooper, and will call my in-laws or the police if he catches a whiff, so just don't do it. Then my mom tells me he smoked the very same night I told him about their rules. Originally, their plan was to wait until later in the week to drive back, but then I got a call from my mom saying they're planning to leave Monday. I tell her that I can't trust him, and that my kids will not be joining them on their trip back. When I explained to her why I'm not comfortable with them going back with her boyfriend, she cried and told me it was just a misunderstanding. I tell her it was not a misunderstanding. I was very clear on the one rule my mother-in-law has for her home. It basically said, screw you, I'm going to do what I want. I also told her no matter how silly any rules are, or how much you disagree with them, this is my mother-in-law's house, and the rules need to be respected if you're going to stay there. She's now super upset, and I feel terrible. Am I the a-hole? Your number one responsibility as a parent is to protect your children. The first time you meet this guy, he flouts a rule about smoking because it thinks it's a stupid rule. What about other rules you have for your children? Your mother's feelings take a backseat to your children's well-being, not the a-hole. Just go for a walk. I think it may be a bit unreasonable to ask him to have absolutely none on him, but don't smoke in, near, around the house. Just take a stroll. Life isn't that hard. Obvious not day-hole. Not day-hole. Why would you allow your children to go off with someone who smokes and doesn't respect your rules and boundaries? I understand that your mom is disappointed, but I think the well-being of your children comes first. I smoke, but never around when babysitting or around someone 14 or younger. If something happens, you're simply 3 to 4 seconds slower with every move you want to make. Not day-hole. The only impression he's given you is that he can't follow simple, logical rules put in place for safety. To add, it's insanely disrespectful to smoke in someone's house when they have clear rules about it. Why would you believe he is going to follow any of the ones that directly involve the kids? Or be respectful to them, your wishes, or even what your mother may have to say about their care? Your children. If she can't see that because of her relationship with this guy, that's not your fault. That's exactly what I thought. When I was questioning myself and my decision, I thought, I used to break rules I thought were stupid, but then I realized I did that as a teenager, not as an adult to respect other people, their property and rules.